Welcome back to another edition of Dogging It. I am Molina Mike. Let me just adjust this here for just a second. And I'm joined by Michael Panozzo of Billiards Digest. He's a regular on the show. And I tell you, Mike, I didn't get very much sleep because we were up a little late last night, having a pretty good time doing that fantasy draft, buddy.
That was a lot of fun, and yeah, it was some interesting picks. It's funny how you look at, we picked what there were five of us, and we picked six main guys a piece, right?
Yeah.
Picked three more, so we picked eight a piece. And after 40 players or so, you look at the list. There's some big names that we didn't even we didn't even consider.
Like
Uh,
who? Who comes to
just
mind?
more older established names.
Yeah.
Your Torsten Holmans and Ralphs and guys like that.
John Moore comes to mind.
John Moore. Some good players. Some players who could, probably not a threat for the Final Four, but could certainly get you some points based on our fantasy thing if they had a decent little run. I mean, John Moore is, certainly a guy who, he's not a Final Four guy very often, but he's usually in that 16 area. I mean, he always kind of surprises with how deep he goes in a lot of these tournaments. So, but that was a lot of fun. Um,
I
and
had I had someone with deep pockets ask me what kind of odds would be for John making the Final Four. So maybe he's due for a decent run. You know,
yeah, be interesting to see. I mean, this is a tough field. I mean, we'll talk about that. It's as strong a U.S. Open field as we've had in a while.
well, Mike, you've covered the sport for decades on decades. What's your opinion in that regard when it comes to not just the quality of the field? And it's interesting because I remember hearing, and it was Carl, I think, that had said it before, where when he was referring to the World Championship, that he thought the U.S. Open historically always had a much tougher field, and I thought you shared that same opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. The U.S. Open to me, especially in the heyday of the U.S. Open, the 2000s and things like that. Um, it was a stronger field than the World Championships back then because the World Championships, had an allotment, so you couldn't get eight Filipinos in the World Championship. They could only send two or three, right? And then you'd have somebody from South Africa and someone from New Zealand or someone like filling it. So
yeah.
the U.S. Open back then was the strongest field, and it was to me the toughest tournament to win because of the format. The format was true double elimination all the way to the final, races to 11, winner breaks. I mean, it
Old
was
school now.
it was old school. It was a tough tournament to win, and I've argued with Europeans and guys who want to talk about the World Championship when they used to hack on Shane about not winning the World Championship. I say, they've got five U.S. Opens. I take those over five World Championships any day because it was such a hard tournament to win. And to me, the proof was in the pudding when Alden won. The U.S. Open ended up morphing, that version of the U.S. Open ended up morphing into the International, right, which is Pat Fleming's
Right.
tournament. And he kind of altered the format to single elimination from 32 on and alternate break, things like that. And it changed how difficult it was to win. And anybody who wants to argue with me about that, all you got to do is ask Alden Ocean, who, when the U.S. Open was the U.S. Open, I don't know if he ever cracked the top 17. All of a sudden, they changed the format to single elimination from 32 down or 64 down, whatever it was, and the break rule and things like alternate breaks, and he won. And he said to me, you know, this made the tournament a better chance for me to win because you get on the loser side in that true double elimination in that field, and you've got virtually no chance. So that's what to me that's the type of thing that made the U.S. Open always the toughest tournament to win, and the pure history of it, 40 plus years, makes it to me still the biggest title on someone's resume even over the World Championship, because of that history, because of the lineage, and how everybody from around the world piled into the U.S. Open field. They weren't limited um, by World Championship, allotments for different countries. So you could get 10 Taiwanese and 10 Filipinos and every top
So
European.
the openness of it, you appreciate because it can actually make it be more deep.
100%, don't you think?
I agree with you, but I do like how it transitions over into a 32. I don't want to watch a final at 4 a.m. Mike anymore. That's so antiquated. It's
Yeah,
brutal.
I understand that. And as a fan, um, you don't want to see someone lose in the semifinals and then they get to play again in the final because it's double elimination or whatever it is. So,
Yeah.
I understand all that. I'm just saying that made it a harder tournament to win. And that always is one of the things that to me made the U.S. Open, the premier event in the world. Plus, at the time, the U.S. Open was the big tournament, the big, the 2000s, whatever. Um, it was, you know, the Americans were still pretty much dominant players or right there.
Yeah.
The Europeans coming up, the Asians were coming up, and it was all pretty equal footing. And so to have that tournament in the U.S. with all the top U.S. players and have the international field come in, to the home pool, which is America, that made it just a special. And it still
It's
is. I mean, it still is. They're doing a great job here with maintaining some tradition of that U.S. Open from at least from a historical standpoint of really playing up the birthplace of pool and 9-ball pool and the tournament here and all that. So it's a great event.
What's the setup like out there, Mike? Because you're there in Atlantic City. I remember when they took over the first year, and I was there in Mandalay, and it blew my mind. That was my first time really seeing Matchroom do. Actually, that was Matchroom's really first actual tournament, right? Because before then, they had really only done shows up until
Well,
that
they
point.
on the World Championship early 2000s Matchroom ran.
Right, right. But I mean, like more
Yeah,
modern. Yeah,
that was a big field, multi-table event. But yeah, when they got back to the U.S. Open here in Mandalay, it was great. It was a really cool setup because if you remember, they had one convention center area for all the preliminary, and then they set up basically a Moscone Cup
yeah.
arena for all the television matches. Here, it's kind of like what they did last year and what they've done the European and the UK Open. They combined it all into one 50,000 square foot space where you've got all the tables around the perimeter. Then you've got a couple of streaming tables, and then you've got the TV table. The arena looks great. They get better and better all the time setting these up. Um, they're going to. It's actually one of the interesting things about this is there will be no uh, matches on the primary TV table until Friday, Thursday or Friday, whenever they start Sky, whenever they start the actual televised event.
But
The
they have,
stream,
but they have main matches that they're showcasing starting today in about 20 minutes ish.
yeah,
Right.
they've got two streaming tables,
Right.
but neither one of them is the main TV
Wow.
table.
Okay.
So that main arena TV table won't be used until they get to that single elimination, DAZN Sky portion of the event.
Well, that's pretty interesting. I wonder why they went that route, Mike, because they've always, even though,
Yeah, I
even,
think there's no one's going to touch that table until it's TV time, right? And so they're going to leave that table untouchable, and it's the TV arena, so it's not going to share time with streaming matches, right? So it's just what they decide to do. It's kind of an interesting little twist. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's kind of cool. And so that main finals table is just sitting there in the middle with a cover over it, and it won't be touched until the end of the week.
is, will the matches for the next 2 days or 3 days, however long it is, will those have seating around it like the TV table would?
They're going to have just basic seating. They won't get
Okay.
into stadium seating, right? The full stands until they break everything down Wednesday night and build out for the TV matches. And then they'll have seating in there for about 500. And
Nice.
And it sounds like they've done really well ticket wise, which is
Yeah.
one of the most encouraging things about this event is that they're, which I think is very smart on Matchroom's part, is to pick a home for the U.S. Open, go there every year, and start to build a following, right? And if they can start um, getting paid crowds for the open events, I mean, the Moscone Cup, that's a hanger, right? The
Right.
big challenge coming up for them is to take these other events and develop big paid crowds. So if they do the European Open every year in Fulda or wherever, and they, or the German Open, and they do the U.S. Open in Atlantic City every year, you start to build that continuity and that expectation. People know the time and the place it's going to be, and they start making that an annual thing. That's the way the U.S. Open built up in Norfolk, same system. So I like what they're doing there. Someone mentioned that the table looks different. The main table, it is. It's a diamond table, but it's their home style with the big curved legs. I can't remember what it's called, the Paragon or something like that. So that's going to be the main TV table, different than the regular diamond pros that are around the rest of the arena.
Well, I'm excited for what's going to be the start here in about 20 minutes. It's going to be, first of all, I'm excited because I'm here in the States and it's on USA time for number one, because now I don't have to get up at 3 a.m. Number two, though, it's the quality of the field, Mike. I'm taking a look at the bracket right now, and name that I'm looking at is Federer, who this is really going to be his first major back outside of a Predator event, competing on the Matchroom stage. And I see him with Cohen Bell, who's a young junior player with some promise to him, but he's definitely going to be up against it. But I look at that second round that could potentially be between Alexa and Federer, and I'm sure they know each other quite well, having played in Euro tours. And
Yep.
Alexa is by far a killer, laying there in the grass, Mike.
Now, is that a Monday match, or I'm looking through the schedule here.
Yeah, that's actually a Monday match. So Federer's actually going to be on the TV table. Matchroom, you guys can go to Matchroom Pool and check out. They put, and I wish I had the bracket up, but I don't. But Federer will be on the TV table. But I think that following round is going to be a 6:30 round, which I doubt they'll have him on another streaming match. But that could be a premier matchup, Mike, and something to where, especially if you're Collins Newey and you drafted Federer, you want to be you want to be looking you want to be looking at that one, because Alexa's a strong Serbian player and he can certainly play 9-ball pool.
Hey,
I
sure.
think that, yeah, for sure. And I think this break format is really gonna, yeah. And we said it before the European, like I thought it was gonna level the field, and then we end up with an Albin versus Shane final. It's pretty remarkable. I'd be surprised if we end up with that kind of caliber at the end. Not that the players won't be great, but rather like more so chalk that like we had last event.
Well, I think that you'll still, the cream will still rise because you've got so much freaking cream here to start with.
True.
And also, but I think by the same token, it's still made for some upsets and some really tight matches.
Agreed.
So you could get chalk for half of the final eight and wild cards for the other half of the final eight. So I think it'll be a good mixture based on, the new system. There's a lot of.
I think for me, Mike, one thing that really stood out, even though if you have these like great players, right, who stand out, who maybe are on the cusp of breaking through, they've kind of been knocking on the door, you still have these guys that have experience when it gets time to deliver.
Mhm.
We saw it when Mario had a chance to close out Albin. When was it, at the European, right, Mike? I believe it
Yeah.
was. And I mean, everything was going Mario's way. The break, he was looking as sharp as anybody we've ever seen play 9-ball pool. He was fluid, his rhythm was great, and then all of a sudden the wheels kind of fell apart whenever it was time to cross the finish line. But to me, that's more experience and being comfortable when it's grind time, Mike.
Well, he's certainly got experience. I think, if he's
Well,
playing else, he
when he's got
probably wins. But I think playing Albin got into his head a little because they played so much together, and he's
right,
always struggled against Albin. They're from the same country. They've won the World Cup pool together a couple times. But in Euro Tour events, he's always struggled playing Albin. So I think at a certain point, the pressure of the moment got to him, and I think a large part of that was just who his opponent was. Just a guess. I mean, he's never going to tell you one way or the other, but I
Well,
get.
when I get Mario in front of me, I'll make sure and ask him with the camera
It.
rolling. That's for sure,
He,
and get his
he's
honest. But Mario's a fun-loving
big.
guy. I love the guy. He's super. You cannot help but root for Mario. And I'm
Oh,
definitely a fan.
yeah, no, I'm a
Um,
huge fan of his, but he's a lot bigger than me, so I'm not going to go poking him.
he's a gentle giant, man, and
Yeah, yeah.
he's very nitty. If you ever want to wager with him, trust me from experience. So,
He,
um,
he
no, but
plays
there's
today as well, right?
what's that, Mike?
He plays today at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, so matches are going to start right here, like I said, in about 15 minutes now. They're going to
Yeah,
be live.
they're kicking off with Carlo on the main stream table as defending champion. He'll have the first break of the tournament.
I don't know who Nikolin is, Mike, but he's got a Serbian flag next to his name, and much the same. I don't want to say with the same class as the Filipinos do when you see a Filipino flag next to someone's name, but the Serbians can certainly play 9-ball pool, and I expect it to be somewhat of a dogfight. But you got to like Carlo to go and start off with.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an underdog, I think that your best shot, what you would want to hope for is to grab someone like that in the first round, and
You mean
make.
you mean like a guy who maybe is a bit of an unknown, but who can maybe go and hit you the knees a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you got anybody in mind or no?
Well, I just
Yeah,
meant like more so of maybe like maybe a more true dead money. I don't want to say like an American
yeah,
like
yeah. I'm not
40,
talking
but you know what I'm saying, Mike.
650,
Yeah,
farther
yeah,
down.
yeah.
If you're a deep player, and I knew I was going to have to draw, a top player pretty early, I'd say give me a shot at the guy in the first round because he's going to be he's just going to be getting his arm loosened up and oiled and whatever, and I'm going to be in the
Right.
same position. So I've got a little bit of, not an edge, but I probably have a little bit more of a chance as opposed to playing that guy in the third round when he's had a couple of matches under his belt and he's free
I
to do
get you.
whatever. So, you take a shot at someone early and maybe they're a little just not sure of themselves yet. They haven't gotten the table speed down yet, whatever. Maybe you can
That's the
take them.
thing, Mike. That's such a big factor. But the difference is that Carlos been there before, right? So he's got a lot more
Yeah,
experience on that matchroom stage consistently, where he can go and adjust better than others can.
yeah,
Um, but and I remember seeing this. When was it, Mike? I think it was during the World Games. Whenever we talked to Kelly, and I forgot who she played early on. I think it might have been Brittany Bryant from
and
Canada, where Brittany had her in a hole,
yeah,
and a lot of it was, and Kelly said as much, where it was a lot of adjusting to the table. But it's like if you're adjusting with a monster player or someone who maybe if they were a little more in gear, day 2, day 3, it'd be different. But that
yeah,
first day, when y'all are both kind of figuring things out, and then
yeah,
maybe if they punch you in the mouth a few times, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, sure. That's exactly right.
There's the guys who are going to be playing on Monday are going to be playing 2 times, whether you're on the winner's side or the loser's side. So you're going to get
Right.
your money's worth when it comes to pool if you're playing in this event. There's a lot of guys who are looking to go and make a run for a number of different reasons, but the main thing that's on deck for this week, Mike, is going to be Mosconi Cup aspirations for a lot of players and especially the Americans.
Yeah, it is. I mean, on paper, it sounds like, and I want it to be exciting. I want to see, guys like looking over their shoulder when they're, seeing who they're playing next and who's somebody who's close to them in the standings playing next. I'm
Yep.
excited about that. But, just given uh, the lack of production that U.S. players have had in the past year, which is why everybody's bunched up in the $3,000 and $4,000 range right now.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking this morning, Sky and Oscar they're number 2 and 3 in the points right now. I think they could go 2 and still make the team because, let's be honest. And we talked about this kind of off air last night. If you had to set an over under on how many Americans you would predict make the final 32, that number would probably be 1.5, right? Shane and maybe a half of somebody else.
I mean, if you're setting the line at who's going to make the final 32 at one
How
and a
many?
half,
How many
You're
matches?
banking on Sky taking you over the hump because you got to like your chances with Shane to
Right,
make it to 32,
right.
but all of your money is basically going all in on whether or not Sky can go and get them. Now, it's no disrespect to everyone. Oscar's my boy. You got plenty of guys who are going and gunning. Nicholas DeLeon, Shane Wolford, Josh
Yep.
Roberts, who's actually playing this event. It's the second matchroom event that he's playing in. But
Tyler Steyer,
if
those guys going
but
after it.
if you're being realistic when it comes to your money, and if you're wanting to go and bet that over at one and a
Right.
half, and it's kind of you, if you were to go and say on Europeans, I mean that line would be massive. I mean massive
Yeah,
through 32,
it would be
right?
huge. It would probably be 12.
Out of 32, I might take the over.
Yeah, yeah. A
Because
lot
you,
of Filipinos in there.
well,
But
there is. I mean, you got Chua, you got Carlo, Alex,
you got Oy,
even
you've got the Coe brothers,
a lot of
you
Asians.
you got Chang, you got a lot of, but again, yeah, I'd say 12, 13.
Asia or Europe, Mike.
I'm sorry.
If you're gonna go and say who's gonna win, Asian or a European,
As far as who's going to get
outright
more people into the final 32, or who's going to win the tournament?
win the tournament.
Win the tournament. Um, I would probably have to bet European, between European and Asian.
That's tough.
I'm just looking. I'm just looking at. I'm just
Yeah,
looking at majors for the last 2 or 3 years. Now, granted, a lot of the Asians haven't been in a lot of them, but
true.
in the ones that the Asians have been in, you got Carlo and you have Cole won in Asia, but that was 90% Asian field.
Yeah, but
Um,
that format was ridiculous. I mean, they're soft breaking
right.
with the template, and they're
So tell me the other tournaments that the Asians have won.
Well, when we saw Kogue, I think it was in that. It was the one with the BDM. I think whatever it was. The what was it? It was right around a major, Mike. Maybe right around the European. They had it at that pool club, and God, it's gonna kill me. I think Braga's pool room.
In
Um,
Romania?
Romania, yeah, and that was about as strong of a field as you can go and get. And Ko ended up snapping it off. I think he played Shane in the finals, if I'm not mistaken. Solid money would go and have, I think, Europeans as the favorite to go and pick it if you're going and picking it. It would be Europe, Asia, and then the Americans or everyone else. Um, it's tough. I'm with you though. I'd have to go and pick a European to snap it off, but so you're saying no Americans you're really expecting to go and make a run this week, Mike? I mean, or you'd be
Well,
surprised rather.
I wouldn't. I hope they do. If someone makes the top 32, they're going to be into points. It's almost as easy as that at this point. But how
What's
many
that?
guys do I expect to make the 32? I don't know. I'd love to see someone make a run. Um, but again, I think we talked about this last night too. Maybe on the air or off. I can't remember. Yeah, we're talking about Bucharest, not Romania.
That's the
Uh,
one. That's the one.
yeah.
We appreciate it.
So, but where I lost my train of thought there. The hell are we talking about? Talking about Americans making it.
Yeah.
I would just as soon see an American player win two matches against really quality players, and not make the final 32 if they didn't, if they ran into some even tougher players and lost two after that. Then I would like to see someone make the top 32 playing dead money 4 rounds.
Arturo saying 3
Because
Americans in the
you're
final
talking,
32. I think you're drinking that Kool-Aid, buddy.
I'm sorry.
There's my buddy Arturo Reyes in the chat says 3 Americans in the final 32. I think he's drinking a lot of Kool-Aid right now because there's no
Well,
way.
I'd
Three
love to.
three is rough. 3 is really rough, Mike.
I'd love to see it because hopefully it would be Sky and Shane and someone who says I'm gonna go get my spot on the team. It would be great to see. And again, like I said, if someone, if a Shane Wolford beat two guys over his pay grade and lost to two other guys over his pay grade, I don't care where he finished in the tournament, number wise, I'd be impressed.
if
More,
there's
more so than if, like I said, if he played 4 rounds of dead money and then lost 2 in a row to 2 good players. Then to me, he hasn't shown me anything that he didn't have coming in here. Does that make any
okay,
sense?
it does. It absolutely does. So I mean, and we mentioned wagering a lot because I like to go and put my money where my mouth is a little bit whenever we go
I
and
wager.
make some prediction. No, I
I've,
know, Mike. No, no,
I've
no. I
already
know, I know.
like a week and a half before my Moscone Cup to pay off all
Listen,
lost.
you're pretty much plus 500 after last night's draft, buddy. Okay, because you're sitting real pretty. But I tell you what, if there's some Americans who are in through the last 32, because final 16 is paying 4,500, that's enough. If you have a little bit of money right now to
Yeah,
go and steal a spot, so if there's
100%.
Americans that are in the final 32 that are not named Shane and Sky and maybe even Oscar, because you expect those guys to for sure be on the team, at least Shane and Sky. I mean, in my heart saying
Yeah,
Oscar as well. You better believe that everybody and their mother is going to be watching those Americans who are going to be playing because they got a chance to kind of shock the world a little bit, or maybe if they were under the radar and they got a chance to earn their way, play their way onto the team. None of this political whose ass are you kissing kind of talk anymore, Mike.
yeah, and that would be the way I would want to see it happen because
Agreed.
players are going to know every round that they're that much
They
closer.
control their destiny.
Right, and that puts more pressure on themselves. And if they can fade that pressure and get there, then
Yeah.
put my team because they're ready. You know,
Yeah.
they've made that statement to me. So that's what I'm hoping to see come out of this. I just don't want to see, like I
Well,
said,
with the
oh,
same hand, you can go
there's
and say Sky and Oscar earn their way to have that cushion, right? So that's why you would
you would
like their
love to see
chances.
that. You'd love to see that as well. But like I said, it's probably even money that if Sky and Oscar went 2 and out, they would still be the top point earners.
I think he's a lock to make that team regardless, just because of the year that he's had. There's certain guys who have kind of who I thought were gonna go and make waves, and they haven't. I think there's spots that are still up for grabs on the American side. On the European, I don't know. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more minds made up unless you really go deep, because they're held by a different standard, not just when it comes to performing, but more importantly when it comes to trying to steal a spot from these guys who are sitting pretty comfortable in Albin and Ruiz on the rankings, Mike.
Yeah, Europe's pretty much locked up. Um, the only way it's not is if um, Albin's got to go out really quickly, and FSR's got to go out, before the final 32, and then even then, the only guys who can really steal a point spot to me are Mario, Kazakis, and Jason. Could take one of those
Okay.
points
You
with a
think
D.
Jason's not making that team?
No, no, I know he is, but if he makes it on points, then
Oh, that
Alex has another free pick. Uh, so um, but for Mario probably has
but
to
you're
play.
only you're expecting Albin Ocean to be on that team, are you not?
Yes.
Okay, so then if Jason were to go and steal a spot, then are you saying that you would leave Ruiz off maybe?
Well, I don't know. Let's say that Mario it depends on who steals that point spot, right? If someone out of what you're predicting to be the top five steals that point spot, Mario or Alex Kazakis, if either of those guys steal
Talk
one of
about
those,
ruining Christmas for some guys.
then yeah, exactly. So now you're looking at, say it's Albin, Josh, and Alex Kazakis. Now you've got two wild card picks. You've got Albin sitting there. You've got Federer sitting there. You've got Jason sitting there. You got FSR sitting there.
Tough choices, Mike.
And you can only pick two. Where are you going? You know. So I mean, and it would be fun to see that happen because I like to see decisions like that have to be made as long as I don't have to make them. So that's the type of scoreboard watching. You want to see
Right.
unpredictable happen, which turns everything upside down, and it just makes it more fun.
You rarely go and see where there's not going to be drama in an event like this, in a position like this. More often than not in sports, there's always going to be twists and turns and oohs and ahs and shocks. And I expect this because it is so deep. the format is a little tricky in regards to the break. I think it really widens out your ability as like a decent player to maybe pull off a quote unquote upset. I expect as much throughout this event. But it's tough when you have these names and these guys who are proven and have track records. It's not going to be easy no matter which side that you're on. Um, I love that you still have guys like Josh and Albin and Ruiz who are still fighting and still hungry and still want to go and snap off a U.S. Open. Um, but I tell you what, these other guys who are kind of nipping at their heels, it's time. If you want to go and get a spot, you got to go and take it by the throat, because
Yeah,
none of these guys are going to go and let up. I don't I don't think you kind of get any moral victories, but nothing's going to go and push you forward into next year or starting off with the rankings for next year. So it's kind of like, this is your chance. If you want to do it, you got to go do it, Mike.
yeah. This is your event for this year. It's either do something or not. If you're looking at next year, you know, plan on having a good international open, because that's the first event for next year. So, uh, as far as points go. So,
Give me an American who can upset Mike and steal a spot.
who can upset and steal a spot? you know, I I want to say Shane Wolford. I want to say that he's got the guts to go ahead and take a flyer. I'm just not sure that he's got the experience to fade two or three of those critical matches in a row. I'd like to think Billy Thorpe can show us something now that he's back in action. Um, those would probably be the two that I would um, think would have the best chance of when you're talking about Billy and Tyler Steyer and Nick DeLeon and Josh Roberts, guys like that. Uh, my picks would probably be Billy and Shane Wolford. How about you?
A lot of people expect come December to have Billy Thorpe on that team. And from a number of different standpoints, I would agree. I think not having any Earl really just makes Billy's chances of all players that much more likely
Yeah,
to to get a spot. But if I'm going to go with someone who can go and steal one, I'm going with the guy who could have beaten the winner of the International Open last year. I'm going to go way off the radar here, Mike. I'm going Justin Martin, young kid, hasn't been playing as much lately, but I remember seeing that match Hill with Albin, and that kid showed a lot of poise. But I
yeah.
tell you, if I was going to go, if and that's only because you stole Billy, because I was going to go and say Billy as well. Um, but the matches are just now getting off. You guys can go check out Matchroom Pool. I know you're itching to go and get out there, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. We will have a follow up show sometime today or this evening. Maybe not with Mike if he's busy, but we'll try to come on and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to coming back on today, and we can discuss how Dom happened to already lose two players on day one.
We're praying, Mike. My money needs it. All right, buddy. Keep me posted. Let me know any updates, any juicy scoops. Shoot me a PM, and we'll see you guys later.